There's no denying that Guillermo del Toro is a genius at what he does. The films he produces are as magical as the fictional worlds they represent. But I'm here to point out just how great this man is and how many levels he works on, because his subtext is brilliant. One of his greatest works, Pan's Labyrinth, is about a little girl who tries to escape the horrors of war through fantasy, and he sets it during Phalangist Spain. So it's fairly obvious when I say it's no mistake that The Shape of Water actually takes place during the Cold War with Russia. The first one. And at the heart of it, The Shape of Water is basically about how love, in whatever form it may take, can overcome hate and violence. Seems like a fairly topical subject, doesn't it? This is the kind of stuff I love, where a piece of art, subtextually, can give someone hope. That's one of the great things about film. Another great coincidence is Mexican-born Del Toro used Canadian locations, Canadian visual effects, editing, props, department heads, and a few Canadian actors. To continue the subtext, something tells me that Canada and Mexico are probably going to team up a lot in the next 4 years. But this is truly a universal love story, and for those of you who are unfamiliar with Del Toro's work, he may just seem like a guy who creates creepy vampire stories, ghost stories, or giant kaiju movies. I didn't call Pacific Rim a story because there is no story in that movie. But even as the creator of these creepy stories, there is a soft side to this man. The tragic beauty of Pan's Labyrinth is evident, and even films like Crimson Peak is basically a gothic love story. However, I believe that The Shape of Water is his best love story yet. Not to take away from the originality of the film, but it actually reminded me of an incongruous amalgam of some of my favorites. Now, it obviously borrows heavily from Creature from the Black Lagoon, but believe it or not, there are even spatterings of Amelie and La La Land. That has a lot to do with the fact that as much as this is a love story, it's more so a love story to Del Toro's favorite films. Del Toro clearly has an affinity for the classics, old musicals, black and white love stories, but it's really about his love for the classic Universal monster movies, and I think you and I both know we're not talking about that Tom Cruise debacle that tried to reboot everything earlier this year. In fact, Del Toro had plans to film The Shape of Water in black and white, arguably as a tribute to the Creature from the Black Lagoon, but let me just say, I am so glad he didn't, because he and the Canadian art department used color beautifully. It really brought this film to life, and more importantly, they even used color to create meaning and subtext. There's so much that this film has to offer in terms of metaphor, allegory, and theme that I really just can't do it justice in one little review video. But I plan on doing a whole video about just that, probably a little closer to when this film is actually released. So you've got a colorful, subtextual monster romance movie. Seems simple enough. Well, we know we have the right director for the job, but without the right cast, it would make his job almost impossible. And let me just say that this is arguably one of the best ensemble casts I've seen in a very long time. Let's start with a man who puts the monster in monster romance, Mr. Doug Jones, a man who puts himself in a very uncomfortable rubber suit from the looks of things. Now, this is a very warm individual. I've had the honor of interviewing this guy. He's very friendly, energetic, and he loves what he does. And what he does is not easy. Trying to show the feelings of the asset, that's what they call the monster in The Shape of Water, is extremely hard because it's only done through physicality. And if Jones doesn't pull this off, if we don't connect with the monster, this entire story is lost. And yet, Jones pulls it off nicely. He brings forward that warmth, that energy, and makes us connect to a monster. I also really enjoyed that the other half of this romance, Eliza, played by Sally Hawkins, is mute, and therefore both halves of this story are more like silent film stars. And because we see their love unfold through physicality, emotions, just purely on the face, it makes it that much more engaging, and even more so, unique. But as I hinted at before, everyone in this film is engaging. Richard Jenkins brings so much heart and humor to an already humorous and heartfelt film that you really didn't think you could fit any more in. And even Octavia Spencer, who usually does dramatic roles but undoubtedly has a great sense of humor, brings so much that, you know what? I'm repetitive. Okay, repetitive gushing, everybody's great. Let's go to the villain. Like many in the past few years, I've become a huge Michael Shannon fan. He's become Hollywood's go-to thug or creep or underrated supervillain. But it was actually his work on Boardwalk Empire that clued me into something. On the surface, he may seem very stone-faced. It probably has something to do with that jawline. But if you haven't noticed, under that stony facade, there is an amazing sense of comedic timing and a wicked wit. And that made his Strickland in The Shape of Water a very interesting and fun villain to watch. He may be creepy, he may be menacing, but he's also very funny. And that pretty mumuch perfectly sums up the tone of this film. Like I had mentioned before, it's just such a great amalgam of different genres. It's creepy, it's beautiful, it's dark, it's romantic, it's surreal, and it's funny. And everybody just seemed to be on board with Del Toro's vision. Now, of course, he obviously deserves a lot of the credit, but I just love the fact that I saw a cast who clearly believed in a vision and they were all on the same page, and that makes The Shape of Water's cast the For the Win. Del Toro was at the top of his game with The Shape of Water. You can tell it was a labor of love and that he had a lot of fun making this. And guess what? That love, that fun, it's infectious. Not just within the story, but within the audience. And I think that anybody who sees this film will automatically fall in love with it and have a lot of fun. And it may in fact be my favorite Del Toro film. It is most certainly an Earn It. Poll question, what's your favorite unlikely love story? As always, leave your answers in the comment section below. So stay tuned for all of my TIFF coverage, and a little later on in the year, stay tuned for that video about the subtext of The Shape of Water. But until next time, school's out. Hey Real students, thanks for watching. If you want to subscribe to Real School, click that round Real School logo right beside me. Also click that damn notification bell so you're aware of all of Real School's new content. You can follow me on Twitter, and of course, if you get anything out of Real School, you can always give a little back. Just click the link in the description below or the button down there, and you can become part of my Patreon team.